patrol lieutenant. The 6 years I took, and I like to refer to it as a sabbatical, it was a very enjoyable time. I ended up taking the job as chief of company police for the Biltmore Estate and House and Gardens. And really enjoyed that time over there, but really had a strong desire to get back into public service law enforcement. Came back to the sheriff's office, worked another 4 years. The former sheriff and I parted ways, and I went to the North Carolina Justice Academy and taught management supervision classes for the Department of Justice for 2.5 years before running for election. Yes, sir.
Sheriff Duncan, I'm confused like some folks about the matter of jurisdiction. Is there a simple way to help us there?
Absolutely. Your sheriff's office has continual jurisdiction anywhere in Buncombe County, but the primary scope of duty falls to a municipality and the law enforcement, because that's what you would pay taxes for. In other words, if you live in the city of Asheville, the sheriff's office has jurisdiction in the city of Asheville, but their primary law enforcement services are provided by APD. And what that works out to is I would not go in the city of Asheville in Bill Hogan's territory, and he's a great guy. I think the world of him. I think he's a great chief. We work together extremely well, but I would not go handle a case in his jurisdiction without making him aware or without him requesting my help. Anything outside a municipal jurisdiction, Weaverville, Woodfin, Black Mountain, Montreat, we're responsible for all that outside. The only exception to that is civil process. Any civil papers, if you sue somebody, if you have somebody served with civil papers, that is the primary responsibility of the sheriff and the civil process division to make sure that those papers are delivered, even in the municipalities. Did that answer your? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sheriff Duncan, 4 years ago you talked with us about some things you wanted to change, things you wanted to see happen. What are your goals for the next 4 years?
A couple, and that's a great question. I tell you what I believe in very strongly. There's no such thing as status quo. I feel really good where we are after 4 years, but I think if we just try to hold together what we've got and we don't set new goals and identify issues that we could do a little better job in, that there's no such thing as just holding it together. You're either moving forward or you're moving back. And we're going to sit down and discuss some of those goals individually for divisions. But if you're asking me personally, one of the biggest things that I'm excited about is partnering with Buncombe County Schools even further than what we have done in the on-track program. Buncombe County Schools just received a grant, and it's for a community coalition that focuses on substance-free students in Buncombe County. And I think that that's, someone asked me when I came in, what's one of our biggest issues? It's still drug abuse and all the issues associated around that. And it can be drug and alcohol abuse. This particular coalition will work with all the stakeholders, bring everybody to the table, to include the faith-based community and what they can provide in providing a secure, maybe an after-school care for certain sections of Buncombe County that basically they might be a single parent family that their kids are unsupervised from the time they come home from school till 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night and so on. When we sat down together as a coalition and bring all the stakeholders together, I think we can make an even greater impact on what's going on with our kids in school. To continue to train our officers and make sure that we put the most professional, well-trained officers we can out there for you folks when you request service. We just started a Law Enforcement Leadership Academy, partnered with AB Tech, to train our midline and upper level supervisors in leadership skills and decision making, and to kind of put the responsibility back on them to make good decisions when they're out there in the field and what involves making good decisions, and to continue in their training and development. They did that out in Los Angeles. I've heard Lee Baca, who's the sheriff out there, talk about that program. And he was so kind as to send 2 people here from Los Angeles to train about 8 of our staff, and AB Tech staff and the Highway Patrol and the Asheville Police Department in delivering that training. And we just completed that first session of the Leadership Academy about 3 months ago. And I think that's really the armor that kind of protects us against cynicism and the things that law enforcement tend to wear away on folks. That's probably the two biggest things I'd have to say that I'm looking forward to in the future. Yes, sir.
Sheriff Duncan, you sort of anticipated my question because I think you're speaking about the character and strength of both the community and our young people and the relationships with so much social and economic change over the last 3 or 4 decades here in the mountains. I think you're really anticipating the need to strengthen community so that we can prevent. Because my grandparents taught me that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And I think those principles and those values, I think you represent very well. And I think this campaign is good for you every 4 years to come out and really be able to reestablish that connection to people. So thank you for coming here today, and you know, keep up the good work.
Thank you, Keith. I appreciate that. I do look forward to coming and talking with Civitan and Rotary and the Optimist Club out in Black Mountain. It's really great to have folks ask you questions, and then we've done some networking off some of those meetings, and we've brought some people in to help us with some of the programs that we've been working on. But I appreciate the opportunity to come out and let you folks know what we're doing. There's not a real good avenue for that. We try to improve upon our website and the communication tools that we have to let the general public know what we're doing, but without forums like this and people carrying the message, it's hard to get that out. So, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, could you give us a status report on the situation with gangs and gang violence?
It's a great question. We have just been meeting to put the High Point model into play, and what that means. The High Point model is based on something called focused deterrence. And basically what that is in a nutshell, if we identify somebody out here in a particular neighborhood that is, and usually it's involving drug sales as well, but they're trying to operate a gang, they're trying to recruit people into a gang for the purpose of selling drugs. And you know, one of the things that gangs offer is a little monetary support as well as the belonging to people that it tries to attract. Once we identify those folks who are trying to lead and do those things, we do our homework. We bring them in to a particular group. It's called a call-in group. And basically they sit in front of community leaders, sometimes family members, law enforcement, and the district attorney. And basically we tell them the truth. We say, you've been identified as somebody who is selling drugs in your community. You're leading kids into coming and being a part of that. And if you don't cease and desist, the skid is already greased. Basically, we tell them all you have to do is be caught one more time. You're going to be run through the process. There's not going to be a plea bargain for you. There's not going to be any deals for you. And with that being told by the law enforcement and the district attorney, then the moral voice of the community comes in and says, you're killing our community. You're hurting our kids. You're killing our community, and we're not going to tolerate it. Probably one of the best examples of that happening before we had focused deterrence in place was out in Duncan Road, Cookie Mills in Duncan Road. We had worked out there for years and had a significant open-air drug problem until the residents of that community, some of them being family members of the people that were there selling drugs, said, we're not tolerating it anymore, and we're going to help the police when they come out here. And we started developing a working relationship. We basically got nothing done. Now that's probably one of the cleanest, safest areas around that you can go to. And they're very proud. They celebrate that every year with a community gathering, and we go down there and gather with them. And I think if we could have more success stories in particular neighborhoods in Asheville like that, we wouldn't see very much of a gang problem. They did a study before they did the focused deterrence program, and what we found out, they looked at any gun-related violence crimes. And anybody that might be associated with that particular crime that had any type of gang affiliation, even if it was a self-identified gang affiliation, we log and track that information. And what it turned out to be was a little over 70% of the gun violence that occurred in the city had some attachment to some sort of gang element to it. In the county, it was 7%. So we identified pretty quickly that most of the gang issues that we have center around the city, sometimes public housing in particular neighborhoods. So we're really trying to focus on those issues. I think we've got way out ahead of the curve. Los Angeles County at one point in time, the leading cause of death of young people under 21 years of age was gang violence. Now that's a gang problem. We've never had those kind of issues here. but we were having some issues, and we started moving towards taking action before they just completely got out of hand. But thank you for that question.
Sheriff Duncan, can you give us a ballpark figure about how much the jail costs annually?
Actually, I can't. I brought some budget statistics. The jail of our total overall budget. Let me give you a snapshot of that real quick. Our budget's about $26.5 million, huge figure. When you take a look at it, a little over $19.5 million of that, almost 80% is nothing but salary and benefits to pay our folks to come to work. When you break it on down further than that, what's left? The operation, feeding the inmates, the utilities for the jail, the water, which is tremendous as far as the cost. And when you break it down, the jail was operated on $4.6 million of that. So now that's separated out from the budget of the folks that, or the money that it takes to pay the people to work in the jail, but just the operation of the jail, it's about $4.6 million a year. Probably the best thing to point out is we run the enforcement side of the house at the sheriff's office on $1.3 million. Now that sounds like a pretty good chunk, and it is. That's what we clothe our folks, that's how we train them, that's how we buy the ammunition that they have to shoot for state mandated training, do all the equipment, do all the things that we do. That sounds like a big number till you throw out there that 514,000 of that is fuel. So that 1.3, it takes a little over $500,000 to just fuel the vehicles to travel those 656 square miles. So that's pretty much a budget snapshot of a breakdown. Folks, thank you very much for having me here. I appreciate you. It's always a pleasure to be here to talk to you.
Thank you very much. And I also want to thank Charlie for arranging the sheriff to be here. Thank you. Our speaker next week, Larry is going to help me. I am not able to be here, so he is going to sit up front for us. I have Stacy Anderson from the Junior League coming, who will speak about all the programs that are occurring in this community because of that organization. And I've also asked her to talk about what are they doing in terms of their membership recruitment. So a couple things, their programs and also looking at their recruitment of membership. Maybe we can learn something from that. So hope you all can attend. And on that note, do I hit this again? Okay. I adjourn.